Namah Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeyam Shri Guru Shri Yuta Parakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagatatam Sahagana Raghunathan Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostite Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishubhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hare Priye Vancha Kalpatarabhyascha Kripa Sindhu Vyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. One quick announcement that I forgot to make is we are having a festival on Sunday, Ram Fest, Ram Nomi Festival. It's the appearance of Lord Ram, and we're cooking a big feast for everybody, and we need vegetable choppers. If anybody wants to volunteer, Friday, Saturday, we're chopping some veggies. Anybody can come.
Which day?
Friday and Saturday.
Okay.
So you come sometime in the morning or afternoon, and Mother Sudami said, better ask them because it's going to get done one way or the other, which was pretty much saying that if someone doesn't help out, it's going to end up with me and Gauranga and Divi Singha. So we're asking for your help.
I'm not helping.
I just try to get the easy stuff, like the whoever has to chop the green beans. That's you're the real warrior. We love you. We respect you. So okay, we're talking about false ego.
Benedictions they gave when we chop vegetables.
I don't know. You're the Charya, so you get love for Krishna. It's Bhakti yoga. You're just chopping vegetables.
Anyone who can smile the way Divi does when he's done chopping those vegetables is learned a thing or two.
After you chop so many vegetables and you're done, you get great relief because you're no longer chopping vegetables.
Okay, but I'm not doing green beans.
Yeah, I like to do the paneer myself. It's a little intense. No, it's not actually. That's a myth. Paneer is not the easiest one. The easiest one's bell peppers.
Tofu's easy.
Yeah, tofu is easy. Yeah. Okay. Bikinis are good too. So everybody here, we're going to talk about the false ego. And during my time in India, just being in the holy Dham, you get a lot of realizations just from being there. Krishna, if you're sincere, Krishna amplifies this mood of Tesham satatam yuktanam bhajatam pritipurvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam yena mam upayantite. Krishna explains in the Bhagavad Gita that to those who are constantly devoted to serving him with love, he gives them the understanding by which they can come to him. Dadami buddhi yogam. He'll give them this yogic intelligence by which they can come to him. And so when you're in the holy places like Sridham Mayapur, just being there is service to Krishna. You have to just breathe the air and you're doing service. And so somehow or another, he gives you this, special mercy. And so it came upon me that, I want to become freed, and I want to experience less of this false ego, this false self. It's getting me in so much trouble. And all credit to, I met one Mataji there, Devaki Mataji, and she's a German preacher, and she's a renounced lady. She wears white, and she joined in the 80s. And I met her the time before, but I was kind of, she was like all into trying a lot about like Grihasta stuff. And she was trying to give me these books. And I was like, kind of like, well, some of the devotees may want more. But then, I thought I really appreciated, her sincerity in trying to help devotees. Very sincere in her humble mood to help devotees. And so I thought I should help her out because I see that she's sincere and she's a very serious follower of Srila Prabhupada. And she's not trying to change what Srila Prabhupada gave us. So I gave her some donation and she gave me a book, Overcoming False Ego. That was nice, Remember when I read that book, I thought, well, this Mataji is a bad man, Majama. She really, really had beautiful book about overcoming false ego. And, it was a heavy book. It was heavy. It was really a call out and really helped me to recognize my false ego. And not that, I've not by any means overcome false ego. By the way, we had a troll. There was one troll. I just got to read this to y'all. Someone on the line, they saw the ad and they said this, and I just wanted to confirm if he's ever watching this, that I have not overcome my false ego whatsoever. But someone said, overcome your false ego. A seminar by a skinny man who became skinny as a result of overcoming his false ego and realized his spiritual sarup as a skinny man who is a weak man as a result of overcoming his false ego, but still believes that he is strong enough to deliver a lecture in overcoming false ego as a result of his prevalent false ego. I thought that was a good sum up of me right there.
Is that a Ruben?
No, that was actually, it turns out it was Arjun Sarthi. He just made one a false account. So anyhow, I have not overcome my false ego by any means, but at least one thing I can say is I really come to a deep desire to work on it. And this book has been very helpful. So this is kind of inspired by this book. It's not based on it, so to speak, but it's inspired by it. So everybody's trying to overcome the problems of life. We're all perplexed. And of course, this is the norm of our philosophy. There's a very large sense of perplexity in the material world. We feel ourselves confused. We feel ourselves bewildered. We feel ourselves unable to understand what to do and what not to do. And we feel dissatisfied. And therefore, we are seeking shelter in so many philosophies, so many revenues or avenues for the senses, so many different ways we're seeking shelter to find satisfaction. But we have to understand first and foremost, if we're going to make any spiritual progress, we can't play the game if we don't know the goal. This is an important thing to understand if you're going to make any type of advancement or be successful in any endeavor. You must know the goal. You must understand the prayojana. You have to understand what is the goal. So because of the false ego, people don't understand what is the goal of this life, what is the goal of my existence. And therefore, they think that the goal of my existence is to gratify my senses. And that doesn't just mean my ears, eyes, nose, tongue, and so forth. That means my ego, my sense of false self. I mean, I want people and things and circumstances to reinforce the belief I have about myself. And therefore, people are seeking various ways and means to do this. And this is just natural because the material world is meant to make you think this way. But this is not the goal of human existence. It's described in the scriptures that the material world we live in has two purposes. One of them is to fulfill desires. Somehow or another, in the beginning, when we came to this material world, we had some desire to enjoy separate from the personality of Godhead. And so the Lord, being very kind, provides a facility, the material world, by which we can fulfill those material desires. At the same time, the other purpose of this material world is to rectify our consciousness so that we can go back home, back to Godhead, so that we can be reinstated in our spiritual position. So this is the two purposes of the material world, to fulfill desires and to rectify our consciousness. However, I'm here to tell you that it's a futile thing to try to fulfill your desires. We don't want to fulfill our material desires because they're never satisfied. One devotee, he told me that I don't believe in sense gratification because the senses, they can never be gratified. Sense gratification is a myth because you can never gratify the senses. So therefore, once one comes to this realization that, it's actually futile to try to make so many plans to reinforce our false identity and to gratify our senses, when one comes to that realization, they attempt to relieve themselves of the suffering they're experiencing in the material world. So we should understand this false ego, because we hear a lot about it, don't we? Mm-hmm. And it is the cause of all our trouble. All our problems and challenges we're facing in this world are because of false ego. That's it. So the very first thing Krishna explains in the Bhagavad Gita, he says that never was there a time when I didn't exist, nor you, nor any of these kings, nor in the future shall any of us cease to be. As the embodied living being continually passes from boyhood to youth to old age, O son of Kunti, the living entity similarly takes another body at the time of death. So Krishna, his first spiritual instruction in the Bhagavad Gita, is explaining that you're not this body, that you're a soul within the body, and that you're transferring from one body to another. So the false ego is this energy, which is a material element, a subtle material element, just like there's earth, there's water, there's fire, there's ether, there's mind, there's intelligence, and there's false ego. It's a subtle material element, and it's the most subtle and the most vast of all the material elements. And therefore, although it's so big, it's very hard to see. But this false ego is what makes us believe that I am part of this material world. And it makes us think that we are this body. And therefore, people are thinking I'm Indian, I'm American, so forth. And this is kind of like the gross manifestation of the false ego, which most devotees have somewhat overcome. We understand I'm not American, I'm not Indian, I'm not black, I'm not white, I'm a soul within the body. But still, we're forced to act because the false ego is still there. So there's a false self and there's a real self. And basically, saintly and spiritual people, whatever tradition they may be in, are people who have overcome the false self and have entered into the reality and become their real self. And so one thing I've been hearing my whole life is be yourself. Mm-hmm. It's very, very powerful instruction. Be yourself. However, most people don't understand what that is. That's the hardest thing to understand is who am I? So you get told be yourself, and that's like, okay. A lot of times when you're a little child, that means be your conditioning. Just do whatever I want, right? This is who I am. No. So we want to be ourselves. So the false self is, first off, is insecure. And insecure also means afraid. So the false self's always afraid. And therefore, when there's fear, the result of fear is defense. And that's a sure sign your false ego is working, is that we are defensive. And many times we think, well, defense means, I'm building bombs and getting weapons and getting my guns and my swords and knives and so forth. But how many times do we defend? Someone says something to us and therefore we have to defend. This is called false ego. Because what are we actually defending? We're defending our false ego. There are circumstances in which defense is bona fide and is necessary. And our Shastras, they delineate that. Defense is necessary when there is an aggressor. In the Bhagavad Gita, it explains there's different types of aggressors. One aggressor is he who attacks with deadly weapons. So if someone attacks you with deadly weapons, you can defend. He who comes to attack you with poison, you can defend. He who wants to light your house on fire, you can defend. He who comes for your family or wife, you can defend, and so forth. So there's obvious, and mostly it's common sense, there's options and times when defense is necessary. Also, it's bona fide to defend the Supreme Personality of Godhead or his devotees. If someone's blaspheming the Supreme Personality of Godhead or his devotees, in that case, it may be necessary to defend. But in other cases, where someone is speaking to us or doing something to us, we become defensive. And what are we defending? We're defending our false self. And this is very important. We have to understand that our false ego is a tricky guy. He likes to extend his tentacles into everything. I may not defend myself, but I got to defend my projects, my stuff, my car, my religion, my country. This is how the false ego, he's expanding. And therefore we insult someone's, like I'm from a small town in Arizona. You do not speak bad about someone's truck or else you're in trouble. If you say one time I was actually, because actually it's a weird dichotomy in Arizona that generally Hispanic people have Chevys and Caucasian people have Fords. When you observe it, it's a lot of times it's true, especially in small towns. So I'm a Chevy man. I'm half Mexican, okay? My body is. And thank you. There's the false ego right there. You can be called out. So I was in class once and I said, this teacher, he's a very hardcore, he was a very interesting fella. But I just, kind of sarcastically and, for fun said, Ford stands for found on road dead. And it was like, like, what did you say? What did you say? And, I started getting scared there I was scared, It's like, I said, Ford stands for first on race day. That's what I thought. So don't offend people's trucks. So this is how the false ego works. He wants to extend himself into other things, and he wants to become attached to that which is around him. So this false ego, he's insecure and he's afraid, unsatisfied. It's never satisfied. All things are going on. There's so many good things in life, so many things to be grateful for, but I'm still unsatisfied. I had what I wanted. 10 years ago, I wanted this, and now I have it all, and I'm still unsatisfied. And so this sense of dissatisfaction, this is a sure sign that we're living in the false self. And the false ego is the cause of all miseries. He's the cause of all miseries. In opposition to that, the real self, he doesn't need to attain anything. Why? Because the real self, you, the soul, you have intrinsic value. There's nothing you can be in this material world. There's no position you can have that is greater than who you already are. You're part and parcel of Krishna. Amayavam sho jiva loke jiva bhuta sanatana. You're part and parcel of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, you're already full of beauty, full of wealth, full of renunciation, full of knowledge, and so forth. So the false ego, the true self, he doesn't need to attain anything. He's very secure. He's very okay with himself. He's satisfied. And he is fearless. We see that in self-realized people. They are fearless. Why? Because the body's going to die. The body will die, and it's inevitable. And all of the objects that relate to the body, they will also die. They'll also pass away. George Harrison said, all things must pass, right? All things must pass. The real self understands that, and he's okay with that. And therefore, he's fearless. And the real self basically has a propensity to serve the Supreme Lord and others by helping them realize this real self also. We see that in our dearly beloved founder, Acharya Srila Prabhupada, fearlessly crossing the ocean at the age of 70 to deliver all of us and make us chant Hare Krishna and become situated in the real self. So the real self, he's full of happiness. Brahma bhuta prasanatma nasochati nakankshati sama sarveshu bhuteshu mad bhaktim labate param. So it's described that what is the real self? Who are you really? Brahma bhuta, such a person who's realized this, he's prasanatma, he's always jolly, Prabhupada says, always jolly and fearless. This is our goal. This is how we should be, jolly and fearless. So prasanatma, he's always jolly. Nasochati, nakankshati, he doesn't lament. He doesn't desire. He's satisfied. In that state, he sees all living entities with an equal eye. He gives respect to everybody. And Mad Bhaktim Labate Param. He develops love for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In that state, he can love God. And if you love God, you can love everybody. So it's very important that we overcome the false ego. All of the problems and roadblocks in our spiritual life are a result of false ego. So I have a verse here. I want to read from the Srimad Bhagavad Gita. Very nice verse. This is going to be this should be our compass. This verse is one of our compass verses. We can become so in tune with how to act in Krishna consciousness if we just remember this verse. I'll read it in Sanskrit. Machchita sarva durgani mat prasadat tarisyasi ata chetvam ahamkaran nashrosyasi vinakshasi. Krishna has explained to Arjuna, if you become conscious of me, you will pass over all the obstacles of conditioned life by my grace. If, however, you do not work in such consciousness, but act through false ego, not hearing me, you will be lost. What Krishna is saying, I'll read it one more time. If you become conscious of me, means if you become Krishna conscious, you will pass over all the obstacles of conditioned life. All the obstacles, that sounds pretty nice, right? You can overcome these obstacles that we're facing. By Krishna's grace, God can do it. We can't, but God can. If, however, you do not work in such consciousness, if you don't become Krishna conscious, then you act through false ego. You act in the false self. You will be lost. No one wants to be lost. So, therefore, there's impetus here. We should become Krishna conscious. In Prabhupada, he has a beautiful purport. This is one of my favorite purports in Bhagavad Gita, especially this one line. A person in full Krishna consciousness is not unduly anxious about executing the duties of his existence. The foolish cannot understand this great freedom from all anxiety. For one who acts in Krishna consciousness, Lord Krishna becomes the most intimate friend. He always looks after his friend's comfort, and he gives himself to his friend who is so devotedly engaged, working 24 hours a day to please the Lord. Therefore, no one should be carried away by the false ego of the bodily conception of life. So there's more to the purport, but we'll just close it there. So it's very beautiful.
What was the verse for the...
This verse is 1858, I think. Yeah, 1858 of the Bhagavad Gita. So yes, so we have two options in life all the time. Really, we have two options. We have the option to act in Krishna consciousness or the option to act in the false ego. So every circumstance, every provocation, every stimulation that we experience is an opportunity for us to either choose the Krishna conscious way of being or the false ego way of being. And what's a good example of that? Meaning that if someone criticizes you or criticizes your projects, your extensions of false ego, your family, so forth, we have the option to become offended and defend and act out of insecurity. And when we do that, we immediately step into Devi Dham. We step into Maya's energy. We step into the energy of the material world. This defensive mentality immediately, now we've jumped into the ocean of material existence. And in that place, there's many, many sharks and sea monsters and various ugly things to devour us. So acting in such a way is, it's detrimental to our progressive spiritual life. Or we can act in Krishna consciousness, meaning that now I can make a choice. What in this situation that's happening in my life, what pleases Krishna? What pleases Guru? How can I act in such a way to please Krishna? And therefore, if our goal is steady, if we understand that the goal of life is not the gratification of the false ego through gross and subtle means, but the goal of life is to please Lord Krishna and to love Lord Krishna, when that becomes the goal of our life, then all of our decisions, they're made in such a way that they elevate us and they uplift us, and that we don't fall into this consciousness of false ego. So we should follow our agenda, or should we follow Krishna's agenda? This is or Lalita's agenda.
Well, Krishna says we can just do whatever we want. He says there in the Bhagavad Gita. He says it to Arjuna. He says, do what you wish to do.
Yes, yeah, he gives us that option. You have your free will.
Yeah.
You have your free will. Yes.
I was just gonna say, we choose our false ego, we're also not trusting Krishna to do.
Yeah, because
take care of his
we're
part.
scared. Prabhupada says in this purport, right? He says that Lord Krishna takes care of all of his devotees' needs.
Yeah, and just takes care of whatever karma is gonna happen with the situation, you know?
Right? So yeah, we can engage either in that fearful consciousness or in that trusting consciousness. So we have to develop trust for Krishna. So those who were here last night, how do we develop faith in Krishna? Shushushro. Shushushro. Shushushro means we should become eager to hear. And hear in the proper mood. Yes, we should hear in the proper mood. If we don't hear in the proper mood, our hearing is useless. So therefore, we must be shushushro, meaning we're very eager to hear in a very submissive and humble mood. And in that way, we can make actual progress in spiritual life. Otherwise, such hearing is like watering the concrete. The seeds do not grow out of the concrete, unless they're in Arizona, and maybe they do. But if we put the seeds in the soil and we water them nicely, then they grow nicely. So we must be shushushro, meaning we're eager to hear, right? San Mahat Sevaya too. We serve great souls. Like you distribute Srila Prabhupada's books, therefore you develop a desire to hear his books, that by that service.
That's true. I love reading his books. I got like 50 of them.
Very nice. So we should become shushushro, meaning we should be eager to hear. And by being eager to hear, you can develop the proper consciousness of following Krishna's agenda. So the big way, because we're devotees and like most of us know we're not this body, or we at least philosophically understand that, but I want to go deeper and understanding that the false ego, this is what he really loves. Because we understand like, okay, I'm not this flesh, but the false ego, he gets gratification in other ways. Like you stop him from his, illicit sex, meat eating, gambling, intoxication, and so forth. And now, how does he, manifest himself? He wants to feel important. Mm-hmm. He loves to feel important. The false ego loves to feel special. Fame, profit, adoration, and distinction. And if we don't recognize, we can't overcome. And we're going to see at the very end how the failure to recognize the false ego pretty much zaps all of our practice in Krishna consciousness. It minimizes the potency to a very, very significant degree. The false ego, he loves to feel important. And so he takes shelter of relationships, friendships, romantic relationships, so forth, based in false ego. Meaning this person makes me feel adored. They make me feel special. They make me feel unique. They reinforce my identity, which I am holding on to, my false identity. And therefore, when this gratification stops, what is the result? Break up or fight or, so forth. So a relationship based in such false ego is lost. It's lost. So we should, as devotees, we should make our relationships based on Krishna. Real self. Our career. Many people, they want to become very successful in their career. They want to become recognized. Look at me. I'm recognized. I'm successful. So many things, right? They want to feel special, unique, so forth. People want fame. They want profit. They want adoration. They want distinction. Or even in religious activities. Look at me. Look how humble I am. Look how nice I lead kirtan. Look how learned I am. Also false ego. Anything people do that's adversely standing out against the crowd, you can understand there's false ego involved. And therefore you can see that if this is real, then the fruit isn't here. This is all science. It's a scientific process, this Krishna consciousness. So you understand, letting that up. So, even real humility is something that we have to develop. Because we can be the false ego may want to be the most humble. One time I was new to the temple, and I think we were all playing the humble games, like go first, and then Sureshwar Prabhu and I think Atula was actually there for this. And we were part of the game at that time. And of course it was all play, but Sureshwar jokingly said, "I am the most humble." And he jumped, therefore he jumped forward to the front of the line to prove that he was humble in being not humble. So anyways, this is all false ego trip.
You gotta have fun with it.
Going here. So the false ego, he expands, he goes on. We don't want to defend. So we have to overcome him. Therefore, I kind of thought of this phrase, right? It's rad. It's rad if you can overcome your false ego, meaning that first off, you have to recognize, you have to analyze, and you have to dissolve. Rad. So we must recognize, we must become conscious of our false ego. First off, it takes that. Sometimes people are not even conscious of it. False ego, Prabhu, me. We have to recognize. Oh, I'm defending. It's a big one. We all defend. I'm defending. And therefore, once we start doing that, we're not acting in Krishna consciousness. And so we don't want to become lost. And we have to analyze. Therefore, after recognizing, we have to analyze. We have to see, how am I acting in false ego and how am I acting in Krishna consciousness? Is it making sense? So why am I acting this? What is causing me to act in such a way? And how can I overcome this action? I'm analyzing. I'm thinking about. And therefore, I'm really needing to ingest and absorb myself in this process of Shravana. I'm hearing and chanting about Krishna. So I don't want to become lost. And therefore, I want to very scrutinizingly analyze why I do things. Why do I do things? We should ask ourselves, why am I doing this? And what gratification am I getting from this? So sometimes, we may find ourselves advancing in the spiritual life, and because of that advancement, there's lots of false ego gratification. It's one of the dangers. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, one of our acharyas, writes how when one begins to advance in spiritual life, he begins to get a lot of recognition and love and attention. And therefore, this is a very significant pitfall because you become very attached to this type of gratification of the false self. However, the real self, the real devotee self, what are we? We're just servants of the Vaishnavas. We're the dust at the lotus feet of Rupa and Raghunath. That's our position as Gaudiya Vaishnavas. We're servants of the devotees and therefore servants of Krishna. And so the real satisfaction comes when we just be a servant of the devotees. Let me just serve the devotees. I don't need any position. I don't need any recognition. And when you see devotees in that mood, it's really, really amazing because those are the devotees who can cry for Krishna. For instance, in our Mayapur Dham, His Grace Rameshwar Prabhu, who has done so much significant service for Srila Prabhupada's movement.
Is this Rameshwar from Los Angeles?
Yes. And so, he was of course, he was a guru. He was a very elevated, spiritual master. And then, he had to relinquish that position. And, many people who go through such an experience, they cannot recover their Krishna consciousness. But Rameshwar Prabhu, he so humbly just wants to serve the devotees. He's not the healthiest. He just wants to serve the devotees. And he has so much love for his guru. And therefore, he offers the devotees flowers. He offers them prasadam. And, here he is actually, he takes Bhakti Shastri every year in Mayapur. He's taken it like 4 times. I've taken it 1 time. And the man published these books. It's amazing. You're studying with these kids books that he published. And he's been reading for 50 plus years. But that's his humility. And you tell him, Rameshwar, maybe you want to go to Bhakti Vaibhav. I'm always a student of Bhagavad Gita. I can't understand a thing of Bhagavad Gita. I can't understand one word of Bhagavad Gita. Very humble. And therefore you see that mood, it manifests, and he manifests a lot of love for Krishna during the artiques and so forth. So that type of bliss is the real bliss of the soul, the bliss of being a servant. So we recognize, we analyze, and then we dissolve. Dissolving means that we have to recognize, analyze, and then when we see that the mind wants to act out of false ego, we don't act in such a way. We see I'm defensive, I'm defending right now, I'm not going to defend, I'm just going to let it go. This is material energy, and I'm just going to find out how I can serve. So Krishna says, Madmana bhavamad bhakto madhyajimam namaskuru mameva shashi satyam te pratijani priyosi me. Is always think of me, become my devotee, worship me. In this way you will come to me without fail. I promise you this because you're my very dear friend. Offer your homage unto me. And I thought about it for a while. Like in Mayapur Dham, the Dham just does things to your mind. It makes you really. And I thought, like, why do I want to be recognized so bad? Why? What is this part? Why is this desire to be recognized? What is this? Why is this, plaguing me? Krishna's, all his intelligence is running through you, looked up the definition of recognition. Actually, no, I thought recognition. I thought cognition. Cognition means to understand what's going on around you, to analyze, to be aware. There's a definition of cognition, right? We're cognitive. We're cognizant of what's going on. So recognition means to remember, to think about. Therefore, we want to be recognized. We want people to always think of me. We want people to worship me. We want people to offer their homage unto me and become my devotee. This is, it hit me. There you are, Mr. False Ego. There's your envious, self being envious of Krishna. You want people to think of you and worship you and recognize. Cognizance basically means consciousness. Recognizance or recognition means now I'm thinking about and I'm aware of such a thing at any given time throughout my day. And if we want to be recognized, we want people to always acknowledge and recognize and think about us. It hit me, oh my gosh, there you are, Mr. False Ego. And I realized actually the power, the real bliss is we want when people to see us, the devotee should think, I want you to recognize Krishna. I want you to recognize my guru. I want you to recognize this devotee's nice service, and this devotee's nice service, and this devotee's nice service. If you have that mentality, that I genuinely want to see people do better than me, I want to see that you will surpass me. Because in my real self, I don't need to be seen as the top or the best. And it was a very, very, it was a very eye-opening moment for me, just right there in the Mayapur temple, all this. I'm sitting there because I was thinking, I think it was like, Vaisheshika Prabhu, some, person I highly respect was leading kirtan, and I'm like, hey, like I'm here, like, look at me, I'm also a devotee, And it's like, why this doesn't make me feel satisfied at all. No, but genuinely, we should think like that I want people to recognize Krishna. When they look at me, let me give glory to God. And that's, Lord Chaitanya said, that's one of the symptoms of a devotee, that when they see you, they think of Krishna. That's why we, not out of ego, we dress, like devotees. We put on tilak and abhisheka and so forth out of service to Krishna, out of love and service to Krishna. That when we dress like this, people say, Hare Krishna? Yeah, Hare Krishna. Like me and Omar Prabhu and Gauranga Prema Prabhu and Divya Singha Prabhu, we were at the Dasa, which is now becoming a very prominent spot for, and Narahari Prabhu makes his appearances there. Nadi Bihari, we're taking over. We're thinking about setting up a book table right in the sauna there. Yeah, it's actually becoming Vasa Day. But we were there, and they came up to us, and we said we were putting on tilak after we were going to go to a little program at Montreal. Me and Omar and a few devotees were going to go over there and talk for a bit. And so we were putting on tilak at the Vasa, and these guys came up, what is this? This is, and then, oh, this is Hare Krishna. And then, here's some books. Therefore, they were thinking of Krishna, and they took books. That's also, an act of service. We can use the false ego in Krishna's service. We can use the body, false self. We can make it decorated like a temple of God. So when we want to be recognized, we basically want people to always think of us. We want people to worship us. We want people to remember us. We say, always remember Krishna and never forget Krishna. That's the basis of Krishna consciousness. That's the most basic principle of our philosophy. Always remember Krishna, never forget Krishna. And the basic principle of false ego and Maya is always remember me and always think of me. Don't forget me either. And therefore, that consciousness, that's the plague, that's the disease we have to overcome. And if we want, our partner or our friends or our seniors, our guru, our beloved senior devotees or our juniors, if we want them to always think of me, we want them to remember me, then that's false ego. Rather, we should want those below us, those above us, those equal to us. We should remind them, always think of Krishna, always remember Krishna, always become cognizant of Krishna. And in that way, we can see how our dearly beloved spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, he is so prominent in our movement. All the devotees, we love and adore Srila Prabhupada. But when you look at the outside world, how many people know who Prabhupada is? This is the Hare Krishna movement. Prabhupada did immense service. No one can compare. No one can even conceive of how much service Srila Prabhupada did. However, Prabhupada gave all glories to Guru and Gauranga, right? All glories to his Guru and all glories to Lord Chaitanya's mercy. And so when we say all glories to Srila Prabhupada, we don't mean all glories, 10% glories to me. Maybe at least 1% to me. All glories, all glories, all glories to Guru and Lord Gauranga. All glories to our teachers and all glories to the Supreme Lord. Yeah. So that's how the false ego, he gets in there, right? So we can dissolve. We can dissolve by this, stopping this desire for people to recognize me. And we recognize that desire, and we dissolve it. We don't act in that way. And it's so relieving. It's so peaceful. Once you start recognizing and letting, it's just like, honestly, really, it's like taking 1,000 pounds off your chest. It's so wonderful. And the thing is we can say like, hey, I follow 4 regulative principles and I chant 16 rounds of Maha Mantra every day. You understand that? I get up from Mangal Artik every day. Every day. And you know what? I attend Guru Puja too, and I read the Bhagavatam. Look at me.
He's a special guy.
Look, yeah, you're dead, right? We can think like that. So, that's the false ego. And okay, well, it's like, well, I'm getting purified, but you should understand this, that desire to become recognized for our spiritual activities, it's explained in the Padma Purana, right? That there are 10 offenses, Haribol. There are 10 offenses to the chanting of the holy name. There are 10 aparads, 10, cracks in the ship that basically dissolve our ability to be able to chant. And what's the last offense? Anybody know? But the last of the official 10. To maintain material attachments even after understanding so many instructions. So if we're attached to this false ego gratification, that's material attachment. And sometimes because we don't want to recognize, we don't want to analyze, and we don't want to dissolve, we don't want to be rad, because of that, therefore, we can't, that's the actual, woman asked me last night. I think it was, I forgot who asked me the question. No, it was Jesse, Dr. Jesse. Why someone who chants Hare Krishna for so many years, they may still have so many really, really obnoxious behaviors. Because, this is there. I'm not wanting to recognize this false ego. And he's just managed to, jump himself into a devotee suit. Mm-hmm. And therefore, because I don't want to recognize it, I'm chanting, I'm reading, I'm doing all this stuff. And yes, you're getting some punya, you're getting some sukriti, you're getting some purification, but you're not getting the effect that if you chant the holy name one time, you can go back to Godhead, essentially, if you do this without offense. So that offense is sapping us. It's a hole in our ship. It's putting water on the fire. We don't have to do that. So when we maintain this sense of, I want to be recognized, I want to be seen, I want to be, I'm going to continuously act out of my false ego, this constant desire to need this type of false ego gratification. When we live in such a consciousness, it deeply affects our chanting. It deeply affects our deity worship. It deeply affects our activities, and it zaps our preaching, zaps our ability to share Krishna consciousness. So when you dissolve that, then the chanting really takes off. You can feel it. Now I've recognized, and when you chant with the intention and the focus. I want to free myself from this. Therefore, I'm approaching you, my dear holy name, to help me become free of this. And I'm chanting with great focus and attention. And that way, because we said that the root of all offense is inattentive chanting anyway. So you chant attentively and focused, and then you can overcome. And then you'll taste the result. You'll taste the peace that comes with being Krishna conscious. So in conclusion, one of my all-time favorite verses of Bhagavad Gita that I remember every day, at least 4 to 5 times a day, is this 14:26. Mam chayo vyabhicharena bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samatityaitan brahmabhuya yakalpate. And Krishna is explaining to his dearly beloved Arjuna, he's explaining that one who engages in constant devotional service and does not fall down in any circumstances, such a person transcends the modes of material nature and comes to the level of Brahman. So our acharyas, including Srila Prabhupada, Vishwanath Chakrabarti Thakur, who reveals his purports to us through Borijan Prabhu a lot of the time in his nice book, Surrender Unto Me, there's a nice explanation given that the false ego wants to serve the self. Basically, he's serving me. I'm serving me. I have my agenda and I'm serving me. But when a person becomes fortunate enough to come in contact with a bona fide spiritual master and is blessed by that spiritual master to engage in the service of Guru, and when that Guru Seva, because the Guru trains us in the service mentality. It's like I was in the Holy Dham with my spiritual master for many months, being trained in the service mentality. And very intense, very powerful and transformative, and sometimes crushing. So you can take that experience of I'm being trained in the service mentality, because it's hard to, it's kind of like this pie in the sky where I'm going to serve Krishna, but when we have a person there, a senior person, a guru, Shiksha or Diksha Guru there to help us train the service mentality. Now, I'm making decisions based on what is beneficial for my Guru's service, what is beneficial for Srila Prabhupada's service. And when my decisions are made in such a way, I can begin to constantly engage in Krishna's service. And I can begin to let go of the things that are really, sinking my ship. And therefore, by that attachment to the Guru and that attachment to serving Srila Prabhupada in this movement, one gradually overcomes the false ego, which leads us into the modes of material nature. And therefore, one who can become blessed enough to become considerably engaged in the service of Guru and Krishna, to such a person, they're not affected. They become very stable and steady and peaceful. And you can do that. All we have to do is follow what Prabhupada gave us. It's very simple, actually. Prabhupada gave us an entire day. We have our morning, we do our sadhana, we do our service to our family, to our, whatever our service is. We do some evening service, we take rest, we can continuously engage, we connect everything to Krishna. And in that way, you sagunan samatit yaitan brahmabhuya yakalpate, you can go beyond the modes of material nature. And you become situated on the platform of spirituality, Brahma Bhuta, right? That means you're prasanatma, you're always jolly, you're always fearless, you don't lament, you don't hanker, you're the real self. And you don't got to prove anything to anybody. Satisfied, that's self-realization. So we can do it simply by just following and developing the service mentality. That's why it's compulsory that we find gurus And we don't just keep them on the shelf. We serve them. We develop by their association a desire to act in that service. Therefore, Yasya Devi Para Bhaktir Yata Devi Tatagaro Tasyate Katita Hirta Prakasanta Mahatmana. Therefore, one who engages in constant devotional service, one who has implicit faith in Guru and Krishna. I just want a little bit, thank you. Just a little bit. One who engages in the constant service of Guru and Krishna, who has faith in that mission of the spiritual master and in the Supreme Lord. To such a person, all the Vedic knowledge becomes revealed. Everything becomes revealed to them, and therefore they become fully satisfied. So that's my little spiel on how to overcome false ego. I was laughing at your little joke you made about the gym. You like heavy philosophy?
Yeah.
That was a good one.
So do you think the heckler that you had is aware of his false ego?
Well, he's aware of mine, and I'm glad. And it turns out a skinny guy isn't my Saru, which, okay, I'm good with that. Steve?
Hare Krishna. So in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that under the influence of the false ego, the living entity thinks himself the doer of activity. But in actuality, it's carried out by the modes of material nature.
Yep.
Then we see a picture of the living entity in a chariot. And it seems to be like someone driving the chariot. It seems to be some element of control. Are the senses under the control of the modes of material nature? Or it seems like in one picture, Krishna is saying, you think you're the doer of activity, but actuality it's carried out by the modes of material nature, goodness, passion, ignorance. And then in another picture, you see that there's a soul being carried by a driver, and the senses are going after something. So there's some sort of like, you're in control of your chariot. But then on the other sense, it says, well, actually, you're not the doer of activity, it's the modes that are in control. So how does that?
Well, the modes are controlling the senses. The senses, it's Purusha Prakriti Stohi Bhakte Prakriti Jangunan Karnam Gunasango Syadasad Yonu Janmushu. The verses explain that Bhakte Prakriti Jangunan, that because we are trying to enjoy Bhakte Prakriti Jangunan in the various enjoyments that are born from the modes of material nature, because of Karnam Gunasangosya, because we're associating with those modes. Therefore, Sadasad Yoni Janmushu, we take births in various types of bodies. So if someone's associating with the mode of ignorance, they're going to start to desire those sense objects which are in the mode of ignorance. So it's by association. Therefore, we have to continuously and constantly associate with the spiritual sound vibration of Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So it is the modes, but by our desire and by the super soul, ultimately Krishna says there's 5 doers, and the super soul is the ultimate doer. By our desire, the super soul's bringing us in contact with certain modes of material nature. But then in that verse, Prakriti Kriyamanani, you quoted it, Guna Karmani Sarvasha, Ahankara Vimuratma Kartahamiti Manyate. That we're thinking ourselves the doer. The false ego is thinking I'm doing, but actually it is the modes of material nature. But the modes of material nature are acting under the direction of Krishna. And Krishna is responding to our desire.
So is it like we are going out into the world, or is the world coming to us?
I think it's just a matter of relativity in that regard. I was hearing today in the 7th canto that actually we don't really move. We just appear to be living entities stable.
Steve, I think of that analogy on the passenger as a soul, we're a passenger.
Yeah, but so is the intelligence under the mode of under a particular mode?
Intelligence is part of the modes. Intelligence is one of the material elements.
Yeah.
But so the 3 modes control the intelligence. Well, yeah, that makes sense. Okay,
So they're all part of the modes.
So okay, interesting.
Therefore, that's the point, is that, in practicality, the verse I quoted, is 14:26. They're always under the modes unless they have a superior direction, that being of the direction of the guru. When one begins to say no to the various desires of the mind, intelligence, senses, and false ego, and one basically acts under the direction of superior authority, such a person can transcend the modes of nature. Omar had a question first.
So how do we get rid of false ego without like dehumanizing ourselves? Because we're not humans, technically, we're like souls, and yet we find ourselves in the human experience, and you got like families sometimes and stuff. So it's like, how do you balance trying to get rid of false ego while still operating as a human?
You Krishnaize them. You have to Krishnaize, meaning that, I mean, I don't know a pure devotee who doesn't have friends and doesn't, live in such a. I know pure devotees.
Oh
Yeah.
my God.
There's a lot
Let
of,
us know who these people are. Tell us.
a lot of
Reveal
pure
it to
devotees.
us.
There's a lot of pure devotees in this movement. There's a lot of pure devotees in this movement.
I'm not doubting it.
Anybody who's sincerely serving Krishna and following Srila Prabhupada is a pure devotee. Anybody. Atul Prabhu is a pure devotee, as far as I'm considered.
I had a
So
comment, or
a pure devotee doesn't mean that someone's Srila Prabhupada. It doesn't mean that. That's
So
it.
then why do we call Srila Prabhupada a pure devotee if it's not really if being a pure devotee doesn't mean that you're up at Srila Prabhupada's level? I mean, it's like, I don't know, it kind of diminishes Srila Prabhupada calling him a pure devotee.
Well, he is a pure devotee, but he's also a Shakti Vaishya avatar. He's an empowered acharya. He's an empowered guru. But a pure devotee doesn't necessarily mean that someone has to be on the level of knowledge of Srila Prabhupada or the level of the type of service he did. Someone who is sincerely following Prabhupada's instructions, namely they're chanting 16 rounds, they're following full regulative principles, they're doing some service, and they're attempting to overcome the modes of material nature by the process of Krishna consciousness. Such a person is a pure devotee. And Srila Prabhupada confirms that time and time again himself. Prabhupada said, they said it. Prabhupada, how many pure devotees are in this movement? Prabhupada said, how many devotees do we have?
Oh God.
So anybody who's a sincere follower is a pure devotee. And therefore they should be respected. And if we start seeing that this person's a pure devotee and this person's not, that's when we're really in hot water. We're in the hot water of offenses. Big time offenses are coming. I can guarantee it. Unless you see, you should respect every devotee. If they're following, they should be given full dandavats, according to Rupa Goswami. If someone chants Hare Krishna one time, they should be offered respect in the mind. If someone is serving the deity or if someone is initiated, that person should be paid dandavats. And if someone who is free from the propensity to criticize, that person should be served with great awe and reverence. So there's good, there's better, and there's best.
I like your realization on recognize, reread. I've been thinking a lot of lately about everything Srila Prabhupada did, and the word represent.
Oh yeah, represent.
Represent.
Okay.
To represent, nice.
That's really all we're doing. I mean,
Yeah.
Prabhupada gave us everything. We're just trying to represent.
Represented, that's
That's all
beautiful.
really we're doing. It's nothing really.
These are like our Vaisheshika. Vaisheshika, he kind of taught me how to think of words like that. But yeah, your question. I forgot your question.
Like, how do we get rid of false ego without dehumanizing ourselves?
Oh yeah, because like I said, there's pure devotees. They all have. Prabhupada also, he was a pure devotee. He was most human. Because we're spirit souls. Spirit souls, the most personal, the most friendly, the most loving. And it's not. There's a verses, nectar of instruction, that there's 6 loving exchanges of devotees. Didati prati grinati guya makyati prichiti bhokte bhajayate chaiva sadvidam pratilakshanam. So even pure devotees, they're engaging in and hearing each other's minds. They're engaging in taking prasadam together. They're giving gifts. This is the activities of pure devotional service. We don't have to dehumanize anything. Gauranga Prem Prabhu? If there's any lasagna left after the devotees take, I'll take a little sliver.
Could you say you're attached to people's soul and to super soul? Because souls are every soul is a personality. So I think of that like being attached and attached at the same time.
Oh, Taruni has the question first, though.
I was just
Taruni Mataji?
it's not really a question. I had an incident happen the other night at my job. I was drawn into an argument, and when you were talking about getting drawn into that material energy, I gotta say, somebody was picking an argument with me,
other stuff.
I joined in and I started defending myself and getting, I was so on fire. I was so furious inside of myself that it actually felt like fire.
But everybody has one. You have one.
You know what I mean? I was furious. What happened was, after a while, because it was going for a while where I was being this way, and I was trying to still work too. So there was like a lot of stress on me, anyway, what happened was after a while of being in that fury and being in that anger and trying to, defend my false ego or whatever, I realized, that I can just let this go and just, let that anger go. Like you were saying, disassociate or whatever, dismiss it. And what happened after that is I felt this immense sense of peace.
Mm.
And then when that same person walked out the door, I said, "Good night, ladies." There were two of them. And the thing is, she's like, "Oh," and what I realized is that I can let things go. I don't have to engage. I can do that, recognize, analyze, and disassociate.
Yeah, it's rad.
Because I was in it thick. I was really furious. And I don't like being that way. It's not fun. It's not fun at all.
I think of this verse here, it's like a nice verse in regards to that Krishna says, we are, we're not like perfect, and like we will get into the modes, so that doesn't mean we can't go back to Godhead. And Krishna says, how do we recognize that false self? Krishna gives a nice verse. He says, "O son of Pandu, he who does not hate illumination, attachment, and delusion when they are present, or long for them when they disappear." So let's analyze that. He who doesn't hate illumination, attachment, and delusion when they are present, or long for them when they disappear. So we may find ourselves covered over by delusion, attachment, hate, whatever. We don't hate it. But who is unwavering and undisturbed through all these reactions of material qualities, remaining neutral and transcendental, knowing that the modes alone are active. So this is basically, we have to kind of go deep here. What that means is we don't let anything disturb our sadhana, our devotional goal. We remain steady. Who is situated in the self and regards alike happiness and distress, who looks upon a lump of earth, a stone, and a piece of gold with an equal eye, who is equal toward the desirable and the undesirable, who is steady, situated equally well in praise and blame, honor and dishonor, who treats alike both friend and enemy, and who has renounced all material activities. Such a person is said to have transcended the modes.
So pretty much realizing the emotion, recognizing the emotion, and just letting it pass.
Letting it pass and trying not to make any plans based on it. That's the basic thing too, is that we don't act on that emotion. The emotion's there. We have to act in a way that pleases Krishna.
Mm-hmm.
We can become angry in Krishna's service, but if we're angry out of Krishna's service, then it's...
Would you say that it's possible to set goals without being fully 100% attached to those?
Yeah, it's possible. We have to have little goals in life.
Having direction and...
Yeah. It's not like detrimental.
Thank you so much for your class.
Yeah, you're welcome.
You want me to stop?
Yeah, you can stop it. Prabhu had a question.
Thank you for the class.
Can you talk a little bit about fear in relationship to the false ego? Because it's obviously